Good morning, ladies. Here I am, Carol Laurie, and with this time I'm with my dear friend and colleague Holly Bertone, who is the CEO of Holly. Tell them what you're the CEO of.
Pinkfortitude.com,
Yeah.
and I help women view their chronic illness, breast cancer, autoimmune, and everything else as a gift and build fortitude with gratitude.
And she had just launched a wonderful program for the second time, and we're very in support of each other and compatible with our message and how we work with women with breast cancer. So thank you for spending some time with us today, Holly. And you want to introduce like what happened for you, because everyone's journey is important. And I think you're a perfect example of what I'm saying, which is we can't determine what plops in our path, but we have 100% control over our attitude and how we incorporate this into our life.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I know we are live. Do I get to see if there's any comments, or is that
If
you'll
there are
let me
any
know?
comments, I'll let you know. Okay.
Okay, yeah, awesome. So, and this is a really kind of poignant time of year for me. We're getting ready to celebrate our 11th anniversary this year, and we got married 10 days after breast cancer treatment ended. So I was still very sick and very bald on our wedding day, but I like to actually start my breast cancer journey before it all happened, because I think it's important to really put everything into perspective. And I was, I kind of would say like I was that girl, right? I had climbed the corporate ladder. I was working for one of those 3-letter federal agencies that they make TV shows about, and had climbed to a very high level management position. I was racing Xterra, the off-road triathlon races and mountain bike racing. I was taking Muay Thai classes, which is like kind of like advanced kickboxing, rock climbing, doing all the things. Drinking margaritas with my girlfriends on the weekend. I was living
With that.
Yeah,
With
I was living in sin with my boyfriend. Like I was living what I thought was the absolute perfect life. And and I think every 38-year-old girl should be living that kind of life. And one morning I woke up and I rolled over. It was actually July 30th, 2010.
You remember the day, yeah.
And I rolled over and I felt the lump. And I was like, and it was one of those, my boyfriend at the time was like, oh, it's probably nothing. I mean, and at 38, like breast cancer is the last thing on your mind, right? But I knew deep down, like I didn't want to acknowledge it, but I knew deep down, I was like, fudge, this is breast cancer. Like, how does this even, but it's like that level of this isn't it, this isn't it, this isn't it. But yeah, like literally 8:01 Monday morning, I was on the phone with my doctor. They got me in right away.
Good.
And but the test took forever, and I'm not sure why. I mean, they were actually very proactive with the test, which I've heard so many horror stories about women, especially young women, getting very dismissed, like, oh, your breasts are dense, goodbye, right?
Bye.
Goodbye.
Not the right answer, right.
Yeah, so I was very fortunate that they were proactive with the test. It just took forever. And I ended up getting the phone call on my birthday. It was in August. It was a really hot day. We live right outside of Washington, D.C., and I was on the metro. And it was like packed. We're packed in like sardines. It was like 90 degrees outside. I'm sweating up a storm, like a million people in my personal space. And I get the phone call, and, back when we had the flip phones. And the doctor was like, and it was a different doctor than I had gone to. She was on vacation. So a different doctor had called. And he's like, so I'm calling to let you know that you have breast cancer, but don't worry, it's the good kind. You're going to need to call the hospital and find a surgeon.
Okay. I think, we could just write a play about how women are notified of this, they have this disease, and over the phone, or, some I've had women tell me they get a text now. So, and the language that the doctors use, I mean, that was not a good moment, I am sure.
And and I could see, like, and my boyfriend was on the same train, like, and he was so like he could kind of see me, and he could like read my face. And it wasn't until we were able to get off at the stop, and I was just like, and it was one of those, like, everything leading up to it, I kind of knew, but you don't until you actually hear
You
those
knew, but you're
words.
hoping that it's not.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, so that was my birthday present. Happy birthday to me. Some girls get flowers or earrings. I got breast cancer. And then 2 days later, Carter actually proposed. So it was 48 hours. It was, you have breast cancer and will you marry me? And it was just
That's
like,
beautiful. What a wonderful story. I
yeah,
mean,
it was,
God
it
bless
was,
him. What a man he is.
and it was interesting because that, and so I ended up going through surgery, chemo, radiation, and I was ER/PR positive, HER2 negative.
Mm-hmm.
And which, I mean, I guess on the scale, it's the good kind. I mean, really, is there any kind of
Every
good kind
kind
of
is
cancer?
different. And even within that diagnosis, there is a gestalt of what are the underlying genomic SNPs
Yes,
that you have
yes,
that can make a really big difference in, is it more aggressive or less aggressive? How large is the tumor size? Were there nodes involved?
yeah,
Um,
the whole thing. Yeah.
yeah. And did you opt for a lumpectomy or mastectomy? Are you getting reconstruction? I mean, there's a lot of different steps
Yeah.
that are involved until you get through it, so to speak.
Right, right. Yeah. And I was, so my tumor was 4 centimeters.
Mhm.
So it was small, but I mean, it was, like even the doctor, the breast surgeon, I remember at my very first appointment with her, it even took her a minute to find it. Like it was that small. She was like, "How did you find this on your own? Like, were you doing a
So
self-exam?" And I'm like, "No, I just
the
woke up and
universe
found it."
was taking care of you, and
Yes,
you rolled
yes.
over and felt it.
Yeah.
That was a gift, actually.
Yeah, that was. But yeah, they called it lazy. I mean, first time in my life I was excited to be lazy.
Yes.
Um, but yeah, so anyway, so going through this whole, treatment, trying to be a sexy fiance, and it just, you're bald, you're in menopause, you've got the walking farts, you smell like chemo, but like, and I'm trying to be sexy, and we ended up just laughing. We started laughing. I don't know. It took a minute. It took a minute for us to start laughing. Like like the heaviness had to come first, and
That's
the boohoos
beautiful.
and all
Yeah.
the,
Yeah.
normal stuff. And then we just started laughing. It really, it didn't change the fact that I had breast cancer, but it sure made it a lot better to deal with.
Yes. You should be so proud of yourselves to think that, I mean, you could have taken this heavy, oh my goodness, and it was like, quote unquote, so bad, so
Yeah.
out of the box for like what you would think. You're engaged, you want to be sexy and lingerie and out to dinner and fun, and here you are bald and
Yeah.
really not feeling well,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's so bad that you just decided to adopt laughter. And I think that attitude shifts things from being stagnant and more toxic to, okay, we're going to get through this.
Yeah. Yeah. And one of my friends said, she just kind of, she had actually had lost her husband a few years ago. But she said that laughter kills cancer cells. I was like, I love that.
Oh,
I'm
that's
owning that
amazing.
one. So
Well, it doesn't help them, right?
yeah, exactly. Exactly. So, yeah. So at some point, and you're frozen a little bit. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So yeah, so throughout that whole journey, like I said, it took a while for the heaviness to kind of go away. And I can't explain it, but at one point it was probably a month or so into it. And I just had this peace, and I can't explain it. It was just this peace that just kind of happened. And it was back to that, initial joke about getting breast cancer on my birthday, that this was a gift.
Oh, right. Holly is frozen, everyone. She's having some internet problems. You're frozen, honey. we're just going to hang out with her. Hopefully her internet will catch up because internet is an imperfect system and sometimes this happens. You're frozen, Holly. Nothing we can do about it. And maybe we lost her. So if she doesn't come back, we lost her, ladies. So we're going to do a couple things. I'm going to, hopefully she'll rejoin. And if she can't rejoin, I know there's several of you on here and I don't want to take up your time, but it's great to have you all here. If Holly doesn't rejoin shortly, we'll reschedule her when her internet is better. A couple of weeks ago, I had Jane Barlow Christensen, who is the CEO of Barlow Herbals, on the. We were in the middle of talking, and all of a sudden, it went dead. And I got a note from StreamYard, which is the system I use to join you all here, that they had a power outage. So it's not a perfect world, as you all know. But I will keep talking for a few minutes. Several of you who are here are part of my Empowered Against Recurrence program. We're in the middle of week 5. We're about to have our 5th class in an hour, in 45 minutes, actually. And I want to just let you all know that it's going really well. If you're not part of the program, I've had 3 people come in at this point, even though they've missed the live teaching for this round. Once you join my program, I send you information for every time I launch, and you can be part of the group multiple times. You don't just do it once. If you want a refresher on the nutrition or the supplements or the emotional week, where we talk about trauma, emotions, and mindset, which I think is a critical component, as Holly was talking about. She got the gift of breast cancer on her birthday, and they turned the heaviness into laughter. And she was in the middle of, she had just recently become engaged. So her husband is a king of men, that not only did he not go away, he was her boyfriend then, but he stepped up to the plate in a beautiful way to support her. And then they got married, and they have, she has a stepson now who I think is a senior in high school. And she has her company. So this was a while ago already that they've been married, and she's been through this journey. So I think the message I want to give to everyone who's listening is that everyone's story is unique. She got the call while she was on the subway or the metro in Washington, D.C., squished in like sardines, that the lump was cancer. So it's interesting. It's an interesting activity for you to write down your story. How were you diagnosed? Did you discover this on a self-breast exam? Did your partner feel it? I've had women come in and say, my boyfriend felt it, or my girlfriend felt it, or my husband felt it, or I felt it in the shower. I mean, write the story. How was your lump discovered? I went in for a normal mammogram and I got a phone call back. They found something suspicious. I think there's power in telling the story, because what we don't process stays in our body as stagnation and heaviness. And as an acupuncturist, that stagnation can lead to further inflammation and disease. You want to disperse that stagnant, upsetting energy. And so there's more room for light and love and laughter and joy. So my task for you is write down your story. And then you can email it to me at support@thepathofbreastcancer.com. How were you diagnosed? How did you get your diagnosis? What were your emotions and feelings in the first few minutes of when you heard the words, you have breast cancer? What was it like for you to undergo treatment? How many months? When I accompanied my dear friend through breast cancer treatment, every single appointment, every single oncology radiation, it was 18 months. It was 18 months out of her life and it was 18 months out of my life. How many months did it take you? And then through that experience, I realized that there's an entirely different side to breast cancer treatment. And yes, you need your medical oncology, but then you also need the integrative tools that I use because they make a huge difference. So from Holly, something very upsetting happened to her, and now she's joining us again.
Hey, I am so sorry. Can you hear me?
I've been talking away.
Okay, yeah, we literally
It's
have
not
we
a
have
problem because
two internet lines coming into our house, believe it or not, and I don't know what is wrong today.
I
So sorry
told
about
everyone that
that.
you were having internet problems, and I'm just going to sit here and talk away, and maybe you'll rejoin. So
Yes.
that's wonderful. Now we can get back to our
Yes,
interview.
yes, yes. So, and I
So
was even
where
trying on my phone too. So,
okay. So
but
where were we?
but anyway, so we were talking about the gift, and I said, I felt like I think I had joked so much about having breast cancer like for my birthday and a gift, and all of a sudden it was like this is a gift. I had no idea what that meant at the time, no idea, but it was on my heart, right? It was imprinted. I was like, okay, this means something bigger. And I think from that point on, just like subconsciously, I was on a quest to figure out what that meant and to really find that gift. And when when my mother was pregnant with me, she was diagnosed with Addison's disease, which is a very rare adrenal disorder.
Adrenal disorder.
Yeah, and her life mantra was it builds fortitude, it builds fortitude. And when I started going through, and after cancer had ended, I actually was diagnosed with a year later with Hashimoto's thyroiditis, which is the autoimmune component of hypothyroidism. So it was
Right.
kind of back to back health challenges. And
Which is not an uncommon thing, I just want to say. After you've
yeah,
been through chemotherapy and radiation and surgery, that
yeah,
stress, if you have underlying autoimmune conditions, all of those treatments are going to plug away at your ability to keep those autoimmune conditions at bay. And
yeah,
it's not uncommon for women to develop hypothyroidism or Hashimoto's,
yeah.
right?
They're like the kissing cousins, I think.
They
So,
are.
but yeah, my mom kept saying it builds fortitude, it builds fortitude. Like this was her life mantra. And just always not like a fake positivity, but just always kind of living each day to the fullest and always being happy regardless of the storms. And I always thought, like having gone through my own health challenges, I always thought that the it that she was referring to was kind of those storms and going through those health challenges. And it wasn't until years later, probably about 4 or 5 years ago, that I actually realized that the it that she was referring to was gratitude, that it was gratitude that actually builds fortitude during the storms of life. And it took me a minute to get there. It took quite a few years to finally get there. But yeah, that's kind of been my mantra now ever since.
Well, I think it's a wonderful mantra and it's unique to you. And I think that let's talk about what does having gratitude feel like and how can it help you if you're having a really bad day and how do we hold on to it?
That's a lot to unpack.
That's
um,
yeah, let's just do one at a time.
So it is scientifically proven. Rick Hansen, I think, was the one that did the initial study. That gratitude and negative emotions cannot hold the same place in
Oh,
your brain. So even if it's just for that moment in time, gratitude will always win over the negative emotion. So that's something really positive. And it's not the gratitude practice is continual, right? It's not like you're going to wake up one day and someone's going to give you a trophy for having gratitude. You're not going to get like a gratitude gold medal or something like, you don't just like finish the gratitude race. Like it is a lifelong journey. And it starts with something that you do, and kind of the traditional approach is, oh, you make your list of 3 things you're grateful for, which is great and it helps. And we can kind of talk about why it doesn't help a little bit later on if you want. But, that's kind of what everyone says to start with. I agree. I disagree. We can get into that a little bit later.
Yeah, that's fine.
But, gratitude starts with being something that you do. It starts with an action. It starts with an action of being grateful, of sending that level of thanks, to sending that level of gratitude out to God, to the universe, right? And then kind of receiving it back. And over time, it stops becoming something that you do and starts becoming who you are. So it stops being an action. I mean, and yes, there's always, you're going to go your entire life having actions of gratitude, right? It's impossible, I think, not to. But it kind of stops being that conscious level. I am going to be grateful. I'm going to make my list. I'm going to say my affirmations. I'm going to do all the things. And it starts to just become who you are, that you have that level of gratitude in your heart, and that you have that level of, what I call the fortitude and the strength and the grit during those storms of life. And then eventually what I call my grateful warriors, it's not just standing in that level of fortitude during the storms, but it's actually being thankful for the storms and realizing that life is that gift that happens for you and not to you. And, it's just a beautiful journey to be on.
I love what you said, that life is about the gifts. You look at the storms as the gifts.
Yeah.
So how do you get there? Because our society doesn't have that perspective at all. This is not so easily achieved, and you've done a wonderful job. So how can you help women get there?
Absolutely. And, and I kind of, can we get into the science first?
Or anything you want.
Yeah, let me jump into the science, and then I'll talk about the 5 levels of gratitude.
Sure.
Because I think it'll kind of help put it into perspective, because it sounds so like kind of woo-woo and out there, but there is so much science behind it. The study that is my favorite study was by Psychology Day, and it basically lists the 7 benefits of gratitude. It's probably one of the widely publicized and widely quoted studies, actually out of Greater Good at UC Berkeley. So isn't that close to you?
Yeah, very. Exactly.
Yeah. So, but the 7 proven benefits, scientifically proven benefits of gratitude, that it improves the quality of your relationships. It improves your health. You actually experience fewer aches and pains. It decreases anger and anxiety and increases happiness, actually turns on those happy hormones. It enhances empathy and helps to reduce those angry outbursts, helps you sleep better. That's my favorite one. Oh, my second favorite one.
It improves quality of relationships, decreases anger and pain.
Mm-hmm.
What's the third one?
Fewer aches and pains, decreases anger and anxiety, and enhances empathy. Sleep better. That's my second favorite, because fortitude is my favorite. Okay. And I like this one. It helps you to be comfortable in your own skin. And the study actually had a lot of really big names. I like to kind of subphrase, put my own words to the big names. And then the final one is to increase mental strength, and that's what I call fortitude.
Oh, wonderful.
So when I say gratitude does build fortitude, it's kind of a scientific thing.
It is scientific.
Yes.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Yeah. And so that's just, again, there's so many different studies out there. That's just one of them. And but I have, between just kind of my own journey and then working with the women in my community, I actually took like the science and then the observation, and I created what I call the 5, it's the success path of gratitude. And it's also one of those, it's linear, but it's not linear in that you can, kind of go up and down as events happen. But level one is the grumpy warrior, as I call it. And, basically you're kind of in a state where just you're just not feeling it, right? Like when Mama Fortitude passed, I was just in that, like, I don't want to be grateful. I want to be really miserable right now. And that's okay. It's okay when the stuff happens to be in the feelings, right? It
Yeah.
just, you just have to kind of gauge that, all right, it's time to be in the feelings and it's time to move on. And really that level is like, you just don't even want to be grateful. Like it just doesn't
You're in
even seem
grief.
like it's a thing, right?
You're in grief over
Yeah,
losing your wonderful mom. I mean, that
absolutely.
is a life-changing moment. This is not something that we're just gonna fluff over. I mean, you
Yeah,
have to go through the feelings of
absolutely. Yeah.
right.
And that's any kind of grief too. I mean, going through, cancer, autoimmune, divorce, anything, right? Any kind of event. Level two is what I call the grateful yo-yo. And you remember those like yo-yo, the child's little toys, the
Yeah,
little
of
yo-yos.
course. I'm old and I remember those yo-yos.
So, and that's, you can kind of think of that like you start, you start making the list or saying the affirmations, and you kind of start doing those things, right? All of those activities. But then, something happens and you're like, and then you just kind of forget about gratitude and it doesn't stick. And you're kind of like up and down, right? That's why I call it the yo-yo. Level three is what I call the grateful thermostat. And that's when you're in a place where you're really starting to see some positive effects of gratitude. It's easy to be grateful when things are going good, but then, something negative happens or someone comes in, spouse comes home in a bad mood, and your emotions reflect that of others. So if someone's in a bad mood, that kind of puts you in a bad mood. So that's why I call it the thermostat, because you're kind of like, not necessarily you're up and down, but you're kind of in and out based on the emotions of and the actions of others, and the moods of others. And then level four is my strength with fortitude. And that's what I talked about, kind of standing strong in the middle of the storms and really just saying, you know what, the storms are happening and I've got that strength and that fortitude and that grit to get through it. And that's really where, I see the women in my community kind of really start to grow and develop that really strong gratitude practice. And that's when it really starts to kind of go from something that you do to who you become. And then the level five is what I call my grateful warriors. And that's really what I talked about, that state of gratitude is like the air you breathe. Like you don't have to think about it. It's you do it, but you do it just naturally, right? It just becomes who you are. And you understand that you're in a place where you understand that life is happening for you, that everything is a gift, and it's just up to you to, to see the gift and to unwrap it.
I think that is so beautiful. Life is happening for you. Now, not to you. Um, how long does it take for women to go through these, you know, phases, the
You know,
levels?
I honestly, I think it depends. I think it depends on a lot of different factors. I think it depends on the pre-existing, what I like to call the emotional sludge, right? The pre-existing emotional sludge before the storm, and the storm itself, and then your commitment, right? So it's you kind of going through it. There's a lot of emotional stuff, so it's how committed are you to make it happen, and how big is the storm to get through. So I think it's a lot of different factors, but it's a lifetime journey. It's not going to be, like I said, you don't just wake up one day and be like, oh, I'm this, or I've got gratitude. It really is a journey, but it's months. It's months of just really being committed, and also having that grace that when stuff happens and you don't feel like being grateful, that's okay too. It's okay to feel the feels. It just, You have to kind of have that balance of it. I need to be in the feels and I need to feel this. And then, okay, it's time to move on and pick myself back up again.
Right. But you've provided a system that women can incorporate into their beings, which will give them some boundaries and methods to not get stuck in the sludge, as you just said. I mean, I think that life is very complicated and very difficult. And our society, this is a really important thing that I always say, our society doesn't have messaging for life is difficult. We're going to have bumps and blobs show up in our path. And it's not always about taking a drug to get through to the next level. Because when you watch television, the ads for depression or any disease, for depression, it's usually a woman and the house is a mess, which really is upsetting. Why is it the woman's job to keep the house clean? Why isn't the other person, whether it's a man or a woman, helping? And then she takes a pill and all of a sudden the house is spick and span, or she's serving her family a picnic lunch.
Yeah.
And so we don't have any messaging on television like the woman is upset because her mother died, or she's being harassed at work, or she has a child who's not doing well in school, or whatever. I mean, there's always a reason. And then she's not getting the support she needs. So with your system of the levels, it really helps provide women with a framework that they can go through to say, okay, today, you know what? It's just, I'm stuck in the sludge.
Yeah.
And I have to feel my feelings, but I'm not going to stay here too long.
Yeah. And I call that sludge. Can I get graphic? Am I allowed to get graphic?
Please, of course.
So I call that emotional sludge. And this is I am very graphic for a reason, because I think it's important to understand that this is to actually give what's the word I want to say? Chemo brain, right? I still lose my words sometimes. Everyone, I'm sure, will forgive me for that. It just gives life to those emotions, right? It just kind of makes it like, oh, this is, rather than just calling it an emotion, like, oh, this makes sense. So I am very graphic for a reason, but I call that emotional sludge that we have kind of after dealing with all of this. It's like when you're drained, like, so your bathroom sink is clogged and you wake up in the morning and you go to brush your teeth and you turn the water on, do the thing, but the sink is clogged. So you brush your teeth and then you turn the water on to do the spit thing, right? So the water kind of quickly pools in the sink because the drain is clogged, right? So you spit, you've got all the toothpaste gunk and the spit and everything floating on the water. And then usually there's like a piece of food from last night's dinner that comes unlodged that's stuck between your teeth. And so that's down in the water now too. And then there's usually some piece of like gunk from the drain, like some sludgy gunk from the drain that pops up, right? So you've got all this like a little party going on in that pool of water because the drain is so clogged, right? Like, do you really want to wake up to that every morning? Right?
The option is you decide you are going to call the plumber.
Yes.
Who's going to come in and plunge that drain, and then you won't have that stagnation and that gunk that you're looking at all the time. And that's what happens in our psyches and our bodies if we don't deal with our stuff.
Yes.
We all have to deal with our stuff.
Yes. And like I said, I am very graphic for a reason, but anyone who's had a clogged drain can get it, right? Like, okay, I know what this is, but that's the thing too. Like I've said that, gratitude, and especially for those of us who, have some type of cancer or any other kind of health challenge or challenge in general, the gratitude fails us for a reason, right? And I talked about the doing versus being. And what I found is that 75% of the people who come into my community, they have some type of health challenge and they say they love the concept of gratitude, but they can't get it to stick because they make the list and they say the affirmations and they do, right? But they don't address that emotional sludge, right? And that's why I say, it's almost like tongue in cheek, but I kind of say practicing gratitude isn't the best way to get started with gratitude, because you can make the list, you can say the affirmations, you can do the things, and they are all awesome. They're all awesome to do. But if you don't address that emotional sludge, it's just going to be extra stuff, hanging out in the water,
Which we all have, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I want to take it a step further, that we also need to address physical sludge in ourselves, how we're not taking care of our bodies. We're thinking that we're like, I don't know, we're fine, but we're drinking too much coffee or eating a little too many sweets or carbs. We're not starting the day with the right messaging with how we feed our body in the morning. This is my, special tea that I make in the morning. I drink first thing. And we have too much clutter in our house. And this is like what I always say: when was the last time you cleaned out your underwear drawer?
Yeah.
And the first time I started talking about that, everyone laughed at me. But really, I mean, that is like where you think, oh, nobody's going to see this. Or it doesn't matter if these underpants are 12 years old and they have little holes in them, and, nobody's going to see them. Well, you see them, and it reflects how you feel about yourself. Take everything out of your underwear drawer and hold it up. And, if it's 5 years old, just like it's time to give it to Goodwill or put it in the trash can.
Yeah.
How much clutter are you living with? I just tore my office apart over the weekend and got rid of a whole bunch of stuff. We all need to do our version of spring cleaning. We cannot live with stagnant energy in ourselves, in our metabolism, in our supplement, in our nutrition. And Holly really knows a lot about that.
And it's interesting you talked about the underwear drawer. So I've actually been in a bra-free study for the last several years. So outside of like a gala, like a black dress kind of event.
Which you go to often, because I see photos where you look very beautiful.
Thank you. But, outside of that once a year kind of event, I mean, I'm bra-free, was there 365 days of the year? I'm probably bra-free 362 of them. So, right. And this was like last year at some point during the pandemic. And I was like, I was like, why do I still have like 15 bras in my, And I was like, yeah, I could probably have like 2, like the strapless for the kind of event, or the, the whatever, if I need like for a t-shirt, if it's, something. So I was like, I have 2 now, which I still don't wear, but they're for the emergency.
You never know.
Yeah, for the emergency situation or whatever. I was like, why do I need 15 different bras?
That's great. And you gave them to Goodwill, and some nice woman who needs them will appreciate them. Yeah. So it's a very nice thing to pass on stuff that we no longer need.
Yeah. Yeah.
And to keep what we do and to be grateful for it. And I love that you brought in the studies about how there's no room in your physicality and your mind for grumpiness and gratitude. And you have to get through the grumpy before you can do the gratitude.
Absolutely. And, interesting, we could take a little side road when you had talked about. So I was actually just writing my notes for an upcoming podcast episode and talking about betrayal.
Oh, and I know who that one is with too.
Yeah, this is kind of the time of year where this is kind of a big topic. And having been so quote unquote healthy and getting breast cancer, like I remember my doctor put her hand on my knee and she said, lightning hit. Because I was like, I'm so young, I'm so healthy. Like I was racing Xterras. Lightning hit. Like at that moment in time, that's what I needed to hear. Right. And it took probably 5 years, because I wasn't in this community that you and I are in at that point. This was 12 years ago.
Right. I don't know. It didn't exist 12 years ago.
Yeah. So I didn't know anything about, I just thought like racing my mountain bike was healthy. I didn't realize, right, at the time, well, first of all, growing up in an agrarian society with all the pesticides, but then, my own personal choices, drinking a 6-pack of Coca-Cola every day.
Oh my goodness.
The pizzas, the ice cream, I would finish a training ride. I would finish a 2-hour training ride and grab a pint of ice cream to eat as I was driving home, like, and didn't think anything of it, right? And I mean, and that was
You
just
didn't
kind of,
know. You just didn't know.
and about 5 years or so after the initial diagnosis, I really started to learn about health and like what real health is, and clean eating and getting rid of toxins and minimizing toxins and all the things. And it really, I just started swimming upstream, and I'm like, okay, this wasn't my body betraying me. This was my body saying, hello, danger, Will Robinson, right? Like, you need a wake up call and you need to change some stuff about your life. Very stressful management job. Yeah, that went away.
Good. Yeah, I can
So,
imagine what that was like. I just can imagine. Oh my goodness.
yeah. So, I mean, I was going nonstop. I was living off of sugar and stress. And I wonder why I got sick.
Well,
So,
I mean, thank the angels that you leaned over, rolled over, and
yes.
found it when it was so small.
Yes.
And that you were, in a place where you got really good care,
Yes.
and that the universe brought you to Mindshare and integrative natural healing, and you have this wonderful husband. And I think that's really important, that there's another side to who we are other than XYZ illness.
Yeah.
And, we have to make sure the scale is more balanced in favor of the other side. Yes, we have to do everything we need to do to take care of our physicality and our emotions. And then we have to really plug into the other side of who you are, with your business, with your family, with your stepson. I mean, with your, the month of chocolate festival. I mean, it's so beautiful.
Well, and back to the original, where we originally began was, I kind of thought I had that perfect life, and at the time it was, but having gone through all of this, and that's why I really am adamant when I say this was a gift. And I know sometimes people just look at me crazy, like, what? I mean, I wouldn't wish it on anyone, but this was my gift because, I was able to take a step down from that stressful management position, and eventually, leave the workplace and, take my little hobby to make Pink Fortitude where it is, that I get to share gratitude with women who are hurting, that I get, for the last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years, I got to be 5 years, 6 years, I got to be home to be able to take my stepson to and from school every day, and to be there, to all the stuff going on, especially with the blended family. And
He's on his way to college.
he is on his way to college. Fingers crossed, we can get him graduated in a month.
It's happening he starts in August or July.
Yeah, August.
Yeah.
So,
I remember driving my daughter to school, and when she left, I was in the car driving home. Oh no.
So it just, it's, looking back, I kind of was like, at the time, I thought that was the perfect life, but I realized that it was all fun, and I don't regret any of it. It just, from a passion perspective, from a life worth perspective, I understand what the purpose and the passion, and, using that gift to be able to inspire others.
That's a blessing and a gift to all the women that you're inspiring. So, Holly, tell me how I can put down here how women can reach you.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Do you have the link, or
just, I don't have it with me on StreamYard. So you want to, I can add it to our talk, but
okay.
They go to pinkfortitude.com, or?
Yeah, they can go to pinkfortitude.com and the / and the word quiz. And you can actually take a gratitude personality assessment to see what your gratitude personality is. And based on the personality results, you will have customized resources that are totally free for you to get started on your gratitude journey. And then, if you want to add the link later this week, today, tomorrow, and Thursday, we have a free, it's a replay week of the Grumpy to Grateful.
And what link is that? We have a replay link. Okay, we have a replay week. And what link is that?
Let me hang on one second. Give me 1 second.
Sure, because I sent out the pinkfortitude.com quiz to the women who are on my email list,
Uh-huh.
but I didn't know about somehow the replay week. I have to send out another email for all of my community, but I'm going to post here. What's the replay week?
Did it come up? I put it in the chat.
No.
It says private chat. Should I do in comments?
Comment. Oh, there it is, the private chat. Okay, I got it. Yes, yep. I'm going to copy and then I'm going to paste.
Yep, that's your personal link. So
okay, wonderful.
Yep.
And it's coming up here and I'm going to show it. So ladies, just take a photo of that and or I don't know if you can scan it with tech challenged, but this is going to give you what Holly does, and it's a replay week, and there's no fee involved. So yep. It's a gift. It's a really big gift because her work is amazing, and it's going to propel you into another level of your inner relationship to yourself, which is the reason I'm doing these free interviews for you all. I mean, that's what it's about. We need to get into a different relationship with ourselves, so we can then do what we need to do every day and feel great about who we are, right?
Yeah.
That's wonderful. Thank you for spending time with us today, Holly. And I will make sure this link goes out to everyone. And I want to wish everyone a really beautiful day. And this is Carol Laurie signing off for now. Holly, thank you again.
Thank you so much for having me. Yeah.